What if I told you, chosen one, that your silence is the very thing she's been praying for? What if the stillness you carry is not emptiness, but the deepest intimacy she has ever known? What if your quiet is not absence, but presence, and that presence is the language her soul has been starving to hear? Chosen one, your silence is not hollow. It is full. It is not a gap between words. It is a force more commanding than noise. It is a power so primal, so sovereign that it does not beg to be noticed, and yet it is noticed every time. When you walk into a room, the air changes, the atmosphere bends. You don't try to stand out, but the feminine feels you before her eyes ever find you. Her body recognizes what her mind cannot explain. You are not here for approval. You are not fishing for validation. You are not desperate for attention. You are simply present, and that presence speaks louder than any performance ever could. Do you know what happens when a chosen one stands in his stillness? The feminine remembers. Something in her remembers what true safety felt like before safety was betrayed by false tenderness. Something in her remembers what trust felt like before it was broken by shallow promises. Something in her remembers what it felt like to be seen before love was twisted into performance. That's why she feels different around you. You're not trying to impress her, and that is why she feels impressed. You're not trying to win her, and that is why she feels already chosen, not claimed by possession, but recognized by presence. And what is it she aches for most? To be seen without performing, to be felt without pretending, to be witnessed without being studied. And you, chosen one, do this effortlessly. You don't chase her femininity, you invite it to bloom. In a world of men who talk too much, push too fast, and touch too soon, your silence becomes the loudest language of security. And security, for a woman who has been drowning in shallow waters, feels like oxygen. She doesn't even realize it, but she is breathing differently around you. Her chest loosens, her breath deepens, her voice softens. You haven't said a word, yet her body knows it is safe. You don't lean in unless the moment calls for it. You don't hover. You don't dominate with ego. Instead, you breathe with her. You listen, not just to what she says, but to the tremors in her spirit, to the pauses in her speech, to the shifts in her energy that she doesn't even notice in herself. You listen at a level most men never reach. And because you listen, she feels intimacy not in your speech, but in your silence. She feels closeness not in your touch, but in your calm. She feels safety not in your promises, but in your pause. Have you ever wondered why she exhales differently when she looks at you? It's because when she meets your eyes, she does not see hunger. She does not see performance. She does not see agenda. She sees presence. She sees devotion. She sees the one thing she thought no longer existed, a man who sees her without consuming her. And so her soul exhales. She doesn't even know why she trusts you, but she does. And that trust is the rarest form of intimacy she could ever give. There are men whose energy burns destructively, fire that scorches, desire that consumes, passion that takes without giving. And then there is yours. Yours is not a fire she fears. It is water she craves. It is not a shallow trickle of flattery. It is not a performance of seduction. It is a river, deep, steady, cleansing. Around you, she does not just feel desire. She feels purifying, not because you are cold, but because your energy carries no desperation, no slime, no hidden hunger to dominate. You are not led by desire. You walk with it. You are not ruled by masculinity. You embody it. You do not use your strength to take. You use it to hold. And that holding gives her the one thing her soul has been crying for: permission to breathe again. Do you know what happens in that space? She remembers herself. She remembers what it feels like to be received fully, not as an object, not as a performance, but as a soul. You are the mirror she has been searching for her whole life. A mirror that does not warp, that does not twist, that does not demand. A mirror that reflects her beauty without turning it into a transaction. A mirror that allows her to see herself without fear. And that is why she cannot forget you. That is why she replays the sound of your silence in her head. That is why her body feels both grounded and shaken then after you leave. You don't need to perform. You don't need to chase. You don't need to dazzle. Because presence is the only language the soul trusts. And chosen one, presence is what you carry. It is not arrogance. It is not ego. It is alignment. It is sovereignty. It is the quiet gravity of a king who does not need a throne to prove he reigns. And that is why her heart races around you. That is why her breath changes. That is why her guard melts. Not because you demanded her softness, but because your stillness made her defenses unnecessary. You are not her escape. You are her homecoming. You are not her fantasy. You are her clarity. You are not her distraction. You are her restoration. And chosen one, this is the kind of intimacy most men will never understand. Because it cannot be performed. It cannot be faked. It cannot be copied. It can only be embodied. And that embodiment is why the feminine remembers you long after you've gone. Her laughter sounds freer around you. Her smile feels softer. Her eyes shine differently. Because she is not pretending anymore. She is not performing anymore. And the reason is simple. You are not performing either. This is why she craves you, even if she never says it. This is why she trusts you, even if she cannot explain it. This is why she remembers you, even when the rest of the world feels forgettable. Because chosen one, your silence is not emptiness, it is everything. That is what you are. That is what you radiate. That is what she senses from the very first breath of your presence. You do not need to speak it. You do not need to explain it. She feels it without words, the same way the body feels warmth before it ever sees the flame. From the instant her energy collides with yours, you live in her imagination, not as a guest who comes and goes, but as a sacred tenant that takes no rent, yet shifts the entire house of her inner world. She trembles, not from fear, but from the overwhelming reality of being seen at last. It is a trembling born of reverence, of awe, of the terrifying beauty of recognition. For years she has covered her essence with layers of survival. For years she has disguised her softness in armor. But before you, her disguise is thin. She tests you, and you do not flinch. She projects her wounds, and you do not collapse. You remain. You hold. You breathe steady, like an ancient oak in the center of a raging storm. And it is that unmoving stillness, that masculine gravity, that shakes her more than anything else. Not your words, not your body, not even your gaze, but the depth of your soul, anchored in a silence she cannot move. She has never known a man who stood when her chaos surged. She has never known a presence that did not abandon her when the storm of her emotions roared like fire. Yet you stay, and in your staying, something long locked inside her begins to melt. Without effort, without demand, without performance, her guard begins to collapse. Because you do not need to conquer her walls to enter. You are presence itself, and presence penetrates where force cannot. With you, there are no games, no manipulations, no strategies. You are too honest for trickery. You are too grounded for performance. You are deep, chosen one, so deep that the surface level waves of her panic cannot reach you. She can glare, she can mock, she can fall into silence, but none of it punctures you. You absorb it all the way the ocean swallows a stone, not resisting, not reacting, only receiving, only transforming. And in that quiet receiving, something ancient in her remembers what trust feels like. Not because you demanded it, not because you begged for it, but because your energy itself whispers to her, I am not here to control you. I am not here to cage you. I am here to remain true, no matter what form you show me. This is why her body aches when you leave, even for a moment. This is why her womb, her chest, her breath, all shift into stillness after she has stood in your field. You touched nothing, yet everything inside her rearranged. Her mind scrambles for explanations, but her body already knows. It knows it has found something steady. It knows the storm has met a mountain, and the mountain does not move. And so the storm turns to rain, soft and life-giving. You become the unmoved mover, the still flame, the sacred masculine that restores her feminine essence simply by being. You did not seduce her. You did not charm her. You did not demand her affection. You simply are. And that being unravels chains in her that betrayal, control, and loneliness had tightened for years. You remind her of something older than words, something primal, something buried in her soul, waiting for the touch of a man who lives in truth. There comes a moment when curiosity is gone. There comes a moment when she is no longer just attracted or intrigued. She is hungry, hungry not merely for your body, though desire pulses like a drum in her chest, but hungry for your being, for your steady eyes, your calm breath, your silence that speaks louder than screams. She does not long for conquest. She longs for communion. Her fantasies are not shallow. They are sacred. She imagines conversations that heal her, silences that hold her, stillness that makes her remember she is safe. She longs to brush her hand against yours, not to claim you, but to confirm that you are real. She craves the way you see her, not with eyes, but with soul. You do not dissect her beauty. You do not possess her body. You witness her wholeness. And that witnessing is the highest seduction. You become her sacred addiction. You become the obsession of her memory, not because you entertained her, but because you embody truth. Your energy does not sell, it summons. And once she has felt it, nothing else compares. Other men fade into dust. The noise of shallow attention loses its taste because she has tasted depth. And once a woman drinks from presence, she cannot return to absence. That is your gift, chosen one. You're unforgettable. Not because you beg to be remembered, but because your stillness awakened something she did not know she was starving for. Her soul marks you now. Her body remembers. Her feminine heart replays the echo of your steadiness like a holy hymn. You did not conquer her. You met her. And in that meeting, she was changed forever. Devotion cannot be forced. It cannot be manufactured with charm. It cannot be bought with flattery or seized with power. Devotion rises like breath when a woman feels safe. It awakens only in the presence of a man whose energy calls her higher without demanding her submission. And you have become that man, not because you ordered her to follow, but because you gave her something worth following. Your life is in alignment. Your heart is clear. Your presence speaks louder than your words. You do not preach loyalty. You live in such a way that loyalty becomes natural. You do not twist her into submission. You walk so aligned with your mission that her spirit chooses to walk beside you. That is true leadership, not to conquer, but to inspire, not to demand surrender, but to live in such truth that surrender feels like freedom. You do not raise your voice. You do not play at dominance. You do not need to posture. Your discipline is quiet but undeniable, and it commands respect without a word. Women feel it in your boundaries, clear but never cruel. They feel it in how you care for your body, your work, your word, not to impress, but because integrity has become your nature. And that nature awakens the best in them, not out of fear, but out of desire to rise with you. You ask for nothing, yet you receive everything, because your energy says, I do not need your devotion to validate me, but when it comes, I honor it as sacred. You know devotion is an offering, not a bargain, and so you never rush it. You never demand it. You simply remain worthy of it. And in that constancy, devotion flowers naturally. Your sexual energy flows with reverence. You do not scatter it. You do not use it to prove yourself. You direct it with intention. You understand what it creates, what it awakens. And so you guard it with discernment. When you choose her, she feels honored, not because she earned it, but because she knows it is real. In your presence, she does not feel judged. She feels chosen, not for perfection, not for performance, but for truth. Your energy tells her, I do not need to cage you to keep you. I do not need to shrink you to love you. I will see you clearly and walk beside you in freedom. This is the new Alpha, the chosen one who leads without demand, who creates safety without speaking, who receives devotion without asking. You no longer reach to open her. You no longer strategize to unlock her. You wait, you listen, you breathe, and because your energy is calm, self-respecting, rooted in dignity, she loosens in your presence like a flower unfolding at dawn. Her surrender is no longer performance. It is a natural, uncontrollable response to the way you hold space without trying to control it. You do not seduce her with tactics. You do not manipulate her with attention. Your gaze does not consume. It witnesses. And in that witnessing is a language older than words, telling her, I will not break you. I will not mold you. I will not shrink you. I will remain as you unfold in your own time. And in that rare absence of pressure, she leans in. Her shoulders relax. Her breath deepens. Her eyes soften, not because she was persuaded, but because she knows she can hand her chaos to you and not be abandoned. You are fire, not fire that leaps to devour, but fire that burns steady, heat felt even across distance. And that steadiness awakens her. It pulls her not by force, but by hunger. True surrender blooms only in the presence of strength, with nothing to prove. Your grace is not in dominance, but in capacity. The capacity to hold without breaking, to witness without owning, to walk beside without competing. And this grace cannot be faked. It is born only when you have faced your shadows, owned your failures, and chosen presence over power. She does not soften because you demanded it. She softens because you gave her space to be wild and still be safe. You became the eye of her storm, the ground beneath her thunder. And while the world is full of men who flinch at feminine intensity, you remained. You did not tremble when she trembled. You did not collapse when she cried. You did not flee when she burned. You remained. And in that remaining, you earned her trust. Not the shallow trust of convenience, but a trust deeper than words, deeper than reason, deeper than time itself.